Well, it gives me great pleasure to re-welcome Bill Laidler, the head of Laidler Academy and a developer and all-around really interesting guy and a guy in real demand because, when we did our last interview a month ago, we were thinking about June 30th going to happen as our province, forces every municipality to wide open its lots and, 3 to 6 unit multiplexes. And boy, did we ever need an expert like yourself. So I'm very happy that you have come back. And I would urge all the listeners or all the viewers to go back to about a month to the video we did in great detail. But now the June 30th deadline has passed. Everybody has trembled and all the municipalities are working hard. So what have we seen from different cities across Metro Vancouver in relation to the implementation of the mandate to get those many units on their lots?
I appreciate you having me again, Ozzie, and thank you for sharing my knowledge with your followers and your viewership. It's been great to connect with a few of them that have reached out to us personally to work together.
Great.
What have we seen from cities? There's three main strategies that cities have taken. The first is we have groups like the North Shore that do not seem like they want to implement this in any major way and are looking for extensions or major exclusions. We're not sure what's going to happen. The province is going to be reviewing all those extension requests now, and the province has indicated that they may step in and force cities to implement the zoning bylaws if they don't cooperate. We'll see if that happens, to be determined. The second and most common strategy that most cities have taken is a phased approach, where they're adopting the 4 to 6 unit requirement on single family and duplex lots, but they're only allowing you to have 2 strata titles. So most commonly in a 4-unit development, you would have a duplex with a basement suite on each side, which meets the 4-unit requirement, but you could only sell them as 2 separate strata units. Then there's the third group, that has taken more of the recommendations from the province, allowing you to stratify each of the 4 to 6 units, sell them independently as a standalone home, and majority of the other recommendations put forward. The leader in this being Burnaby, and closely with it is Vancouver, because Vancouver had implemented their multiplex policy well before the province announcements and has had a fairly good market adoption.
Well, it's interesting to talk about Burnaby. You have a big event coming up in Burnaby, a sellout, I guess.
Yeah, it's been humbling. We had 405 seats sell out in 10 days and a fairly major wait list from a range of different people. We even have past clients for myself 10 years ago who I sold their home.
Oh, that's what you're doing now, eh?
Investors, builders, developers, realtors. It's gonna be a great event. We really look forward to seeing everyone there.
Well, depending on what hat you wear, is an opportunity or it's a pain, or either way, it's interesting. It's interesting what you say about the 2 units with the 2 coach houses or 2 basement suites. We have one of our members in our real estate action group. That's exactly what he has. He said he thought he had 4 units, but it ends up having a duplex, and it's no longer feasible in his view in terms of what he got 4 times the cost, the cost and the income. Now, as a duplex, he does not see that he can get it. He's put the property up for sale. So there is some negatives on. There are new rules, but then within the rules, the municipality can do its own rules. So you really need a local expert to look at it all.
As you say, Ozzie, the devil's in the details, and it is important to look exactly at what the entitlement possibilities are, what the city fees are, the policies on offsite infrastructure, as we talked in our last podcast episode.
Huge.
There's a lot of items that go into it. For the right property, there is a great opportunity, but it's not for every property.
Well, what is the result? So what are builders and developers? Are they actively buying land now for different multiplex properties now, or maybe will be in the future? Or is there so much demand that the price is coming down, actually?
In Vancouver, they adopted the multiplex zone in September of last year, and there's been 150 multiplex applications processed in the city. The speed of applications are picking up in the last few months. As the market's figuring out what the opportunity is, we're seeing good uptake in Vancouver. In Burnaby, we hosted our first multiplex intensive training course with 20 participants, ranging from high-producing realtors to investors and developers. And through that 6-week program, there were about 6 sites that have gone under contract for multiplex development with different clients. I have one myself personally, and I'm actively looking for more. And we expect there to be a big market uptake in the Burnaby marketplace, given the flexibility that they've provided in process.
Yeah, I understand. Burnaby, there's a limit to height, but Burnaby has exceeded. It's like doubling down on some of the rules. Maybe you can get into that.
Yeah, so there's 2 main distinctions that Burnaby's made that no other Metro Vancouver city has adopted. The first is the removal of a floor space ratio requirement. This was a recommendation from the province to allow developers and homeowners to have more flexibility in their design and to have larger units, 13, 14, 1,500 square feet, that are true 3 bedrooms with that front door and backyard. When you look at some of the restrictions from other cities, 0.8 FSR or 1 FSR, your unit sizes get to be so small that they're not the family-oriented housing that was originally the purpose of this multiplex zoning bylaw. So the removal of floor space ratio was the first major change that Burnaby has adopted and no other city has taken. The second major change that Burnaby has adopted, and this again was a provincial recommendation that Burnaby was the only city to implement, is no rezoning process and, critically, no development permit process. In Burnaby,
that's huge, because on a time-wise, that's developers always saying, my God, I may not like the ruling I get, but I wish I would get it a little sooner or a lot sooner.
That's it. Time is money. The interest and carrying costs of these projects is one of the biggest impacts from them moving forward. More than city fees, more than the offsite servicing upgrades. A 3 to 4 year project and paying interest kills the sites.
Yeah, and I think they brought that in actually earlier than the idea that you don't have to have another public hearing if there already is an official community plan. And a lot of the municipalities didn't like it, but it did make a lot of sense. We might be rising the government on all sorts of things, but I thought that was a good idea, and I think developers would agree with that. Not to have yet another public hearing that delays it yet another 6 months or more.
It seems to make sense. We've gone through a public process to set the official community plan. Why need another public process for every development, as small as it is? Potentially for the larger master plan communities, we can see the benefits, and many times that public input can add value to the development with different ideas. But yeah, for these smaller density, medium density, higher townhomes or low-rise condos.
Plus you have a lot of players. There's hydro, there's 1,000 things, sewers, and all these things to consider. And that's what we talked about the last time, which what was it, Bill 16 or Bill 14 on the offsite regulations? That, to me, I'm surprised to say that isn't as big a deal as I thought before, because if I have to wait till a day before the building permit comes, before I know even what the offsite's costs are, blows my mind. In fact, several people made a comment on our last video where one guy said he was in Burnaby, in Port Moody, and he redeveloped 3 properties. The first one was 120,000 offsite. The second one was 200, and the third one, which killed him, they said was 300,000. And he doesn't know it when you buy the lot, and that it's almost like you have to go to the municipality and look. I don't know. I know you don't know 100%, but you've got to give me an idea as to what they're going to be.
I'm a big champion more recently of Burnaby. I've always been a Tri-City guy, born and raised in Port Moody. All of my projects have been Port Moody, Coquitlam. But recently I'm moving to be Burnaby champion. And this is because Burnaby, what we learned in the last 30 days since we last met, Burnaby also has a pre-application engineering review process. So for the site that we're acquiring now, we're going to have our pre-application engineering review submission by the middle of next week. And likely will have a response before we have to go firm and pay the deposit at the end of August.
Well, that's the point, right? I mean, you don't want to just hope for the best, because usually when you hope, it doesn't come your way. So the what part of the mandates are having sort of the greatest effect on the market?
Well, it is this process. It's the process. We're seeing single family home builders moving up into multiplex. And many single family home builders didn't go into townhouse developments for that exact reason. They didn't want to go into a 3-year public process before they would start building.
Right.
Many of them would have preferred to build townhomes at a lower price point, but because of the process, they stuck with the single family homes, dealt with the market risk of having to sell at $3.5, $4 million for a spec property. And we're starting to see them come into the multiplex townhouse marketplace because that's where they always wanted to be.
Yeah, well, why is it cheaper to build a townhome than, let's say, an apartment complex?
Well, beyond the construction costs, so once you start getting into underground parkades, the complexity of construction and the cost of construction changes significantly. So there's a technical requirement or a technical expertise required there. But this process,
I noticed in some small towns, you see a 5-story or 6-story building, and the square footage price is in over 600, and then you look at a townhouse complex and the square footage is 390 or something like that. It's a substantial difference, and I guess it's partly parking and all the other offsite costs.
Definitely. Yeah. A different building code requirement as well. To go back to the process is the biggest thing. Even if you want to do a higher density townhouse project and you have to go through a pre-application, potential design committees, land use committees, first reading, second reading, third reading, it's that 3-year timeline compared to going directly to building permit is such a significant improvement.
It's funny, at all levels of government says we need more affordability. We need affordability. We want to be affordable. And these processes, the costs of the applications, the timeline, tens and tens of thousands of dollars. I mean, there were several reports done, one by a major appraisal company that thought it's between 26 and 29% of every condo built, the cost is all government in some sort of another. And it's not just the municipality itself with its rules, but inside the municipality is all these different departments, and you have to apply. They all need their piece of the pie, or they need to have certain permits, and some people just throw up their hands. What about the people that are the neighbors? Do you have any feedback from anybody who says is not really happy to see that fourplex go up next door?
Well, let's be honest, my wife, myself, we live in a nice single family home, and we're concerned about some of the views being blocked as well. So we're going to be directly impacted by this if the neighbor across the streets ends up building a multiplex.
Yeah.
But really, what can we do? We either want to have more family-oriented houses in our neighborhood, or we don't. I'm not completely against protecting some neighborhoods and having some neighborhoods being single family type neighborhoods. And there should be some discretion city by city, but ultimately having family-oriented housing with the front door, backyard, 3 full bedrooms in a city like Vancouver, one of the most desirable cities in the world, it's a fairly minor step compared to London, where all of our land would be low-rise buildings.
Well, and of course, there's always several sides to the story. I'm actually personally surprised that, say, on the west side, where the average house really is 3 million, not 2 million, and that there's no more outcry and say, I don't want this in my. Now you could, I understand, and I've heard that some communities or some cul-de-sacs, somebody's going around to all the owners saying, don't sell, or if you sell, call me first, I'll buy it. They don't want to make, they want to make sure, because it has to be sold in order to be done. But gee whiz, the whole thing is changing the development, though, the development models that people have, the development models that people teach. How about yourself, your own company? How does all that help your model, or has it changed your model, or is it still the same?
We talked a little bit about the types of builders who are moving into multiplex, and the one group is the single family builders who are moving into this townhouse type development. But we're also seeing the multifamily builders like myself coming from a 6-story wood frame site under construction. We have a 12-story building that's going to be going for public hearing next month. And I'm redirecting my time and resources down into this multiplex. Many other larger developers are as well, for that exact same reason. The process is so much more effective and faster. We have more certainty in our business model, and we're getting to building permit faster. It's easier for us smaller groups to participate because you really need to have large cash reserves if you want to be able to hold through that 5 to 7 year development time process.
Well, yeah, and that's so who knows? Maybe it's all gonna be, in retrospect, it was the nirvana. Just going back briefly to Burnaby, they have also allowing higher buildings. Is that correct?
Yeah, they allow up to 4 stories.
So that'll really take away the view on some neighbors. Yeah, so interesting. Well, you're in an exciting world. So our listeners, our viewers, you know, what can they do if they want to learn about developing opportunities for themselves, or that they have a property that they would like to determine is a potential? Because really, just because you have a lot, and even if you have a big lot, doesn't mean that it's ideal for the development, isn't it?
Yeah, so there's 3 ways that we can work together on a multiplex development. First, we offer a training course. It's 4 weeks, and it'll take you from land acquisition strategy, pricing property, the pro forma, hard costs, soft costs, offsites financing, into the city process and building out your consulting team, and raising equity if you're looking to raise equity under the GP-LP structure. Our next group is going to be launching in September, so you can work with us in that, and we'll teach you everything that we know in terms of sourcing and developing multiplexes.
Well, I think that if you had any property, but they can also hire your company now and get to do a feasibility study. Let's say I've had already approvals of a certain floor, but how do these new rules, is there a better way to skin a cat? Or a worse way, like you're pointing out, if there's a duplex now only possible, and I thought I would have 3 units, can they hire you?
Definitely. So that's the second way, and this is where we appreciate the referrals that you and your listeners have already reached out to us on, where we'll provide you 3 design options, a pro forma that accompanies the best and highest use, and we'll meet with the city with you to workshop any challenges so that you can make a decision on where to move forward from there.
I think the meet with the city is much bigger than just sort of talk about it, because you build relationships, you get to know the people. The city, they're just human beings, they have rules to follow, and they like knowing somebody. You know, I know some building inspector for years. There's a certain developer that I like to go to his buildings because I'm never disappointed. There's no shortcuts. He's always doing the right thing. So that's the kind of key, that you don't have a relationship as an individual with the city. You don't even know which department. Don't go on the 3rd floor or the 2nd floor. You know, I mean, you need somebody to steer it. The whole idea of it, then, I seem to think that you feel a little bit better about it than the last time we talked. Am I right? Or
yes, in certain cities. So we're still carrying $300,000 for our offsite servicing upgrades, and we're budgeting for that at the minimum. And some of our meetings with civil engineers, we may need to increase that budget. So what we've seen is really there's 2 main requirements for a site to be feasible. We need to have at least $750 per square foot of revenue for the individual strata developments, so that there's enough revenue to cover all of the costs, pay the bank, and to have profit left over that is at the required profit margin that a bank needs before they will lend. We need about $750 per square foot on the revenue side if it's going to be a strata development, right, individual units. The alternative is we have underwrote some projects under the CMHC rental financing.
Yeah, good financing.
Up to 90% financing. We need to see at least $4 a square foot on the revenue side for rental. before that really starts becoming economical. At that rate, you can get a project done with about 25% equity of the total cost.
That certainly is a hefty rent.
It is.
Yeah. So, but that's the kind of thing you need to know beforehand. Is it realistic? Is that what the market will bear? Now, I understand that you have a sort of a feasibility checklist for lots of items.
Right. And we have a feasibility checklist that goes through the 15 points that we look at for every development before we would move forward with an offer. And one of the key main concepts is our time is money. And the more time we're spending chasing the wrong projects, the lower our production will be, the higher stress levels, and the slower our growth. So that checklist is in priority, starting at the top. Do you have an excluded property? Is there an environmental restriction? What is the entitlement rights? And then all the way down to the bottom.
Well, what is an entitlement right?
That's the duplex, multiplex. Is it you're selling it as 2 units? You can sell them as 6 units. In White Rock, they're only letting you do 1 strata. It's just a rental building, 6 units in one title.
Oh, I see. So it's almost totally different concept than what was originally envisioned. Now, White Rock always dances to its own drum. I had years and years, a long time ago, I had a seven suite apartment on Marine Drive and a restaurant. Anyways, the point is the memories are not all good. But you also have a sort of the whole idea, all the definitions that you have to understand. You know, you have a list of definitions.
Yeah, it's becoming complicated. We have to know what a TOA is, an FTN, SMMUH, a SMU.
Don't keep me in suspense. What on earth is that?
That's what the province is called multiplex. They came out with small scale multi-unit housing, which has now been abbreviated in all the council reports as SMU.
Anything for an abbreviation.
But then there's the process, development permit process, building permit process, rezoning process, official community plans. Like this, the basics of real estate development is really what the minimum knowledge requirement is now for an investor, realtor, property owner. It's become much more complicated with all the different development options. Well,
a realtor now has to almost be a commercial realtor, right? With the knowledge that's required. You know, just a residential realtor is probably not capable of. I mean, he certainly can learn it, but it's going to be some huge strange happening for him or her, right? Kind of an
we can see the underpriced properties in the marketplace today. The ones that the buyers are buying are unfortunately listed with real estate agents that do not fully understand the development potential.
Yeah, you see, that's it. Or the potential of it not working, right? Either way, you're
just as valuable.
Yeah.
The confidence of not steering the client down the wrong path, overpricing the home, 6 months of wasted time. Definitely very, very important.
Yeah, well, we always have this old saying, time is money, but particularly in development, you know, the whole idea, and Michael Campbell and I have the privilege to be on his show every Saturday, and we come time and time again, it gets back to government says we need to have affordability, and then they blame everybody. They're blaming the developer, the owner, the landlord. I mean, we have new landlord and tenant legislation just enacted last week. And it's you know, when you look at the details now, what a landlord has to go through, you wonder why anybody wants to be one. But that's for another story or another time. So anything else that you'd like to leave with the audience that they should be looking at?
One of the most interesting opportunities that's come up, and we've done a few deals like this recently, is joint venture partnerships with homeowners. And that's both if the homeowner wants to participate in the profit of the development, and also if they want to add additional units to their property so that they can either access some equity and sell off a portion of their land, or if they want to build units for their kids, or if they want to move into a smaller unit on that same piece of property.
Oh, yeah.
The joint venture program has been really well received and is the way for the homeowner to maximize the benefit, because we're still having to build in so much risk into our pro formas that we're not paying the highest land price yet because of some of the uncertainty. For example, is the offsite servicing is going to be $300,000 or will it be $100,000?
Huge
If it's
difference.
only $100,000, then we can afford to pay more for the land, and then land price would adjust. So that joint venture option is something we're really excited about. And if any of the listeners have a property, especially in Burnaby or Vancouver, that they would like to explore that, we would do the feasibility study for them for free.
Wow, that's obvious. The word free has a nice ring to it, you know, but in the end, you know, that's what you need. I think a joint venture be interesting because on the one hand, the homeowner brings the house and the lot and then doesn't have the expertise, and the people that have the expertise or have the money but not the time or the effort, they have a finite thing that they can see, you know, this is the place and that's what, and then somebody like you can say, this is what we can do with it, and that these are the options. Sounds exciting. So I think generally you seem to be more positive on this new legislation, or is that just my understanding? But I think as we get into it, we get more information and we find out which municipalities are really on board and which ones are not, or which ones actively work against it. I think West Van has been sanctioned or pointed out by the BC government as being particularly dragging its feet on the
We'll see, but you're right. It's the specific cities that we're excited about. And I'm selling properties in other cities to move my assets into the more pro-development locations where we can really make an impact.
Yeah, it's a new world, and there's always in real estate a new world, but we need the experts to explain that new world to us. And I want to thank you for your time to join me this morning. And if somebody wanted to have that fabulous checklist that can they get that, or can they give your office a call?
Definitely. Either I'm sure I provide it to you, Ozzie. So Ozzie, feel free to share it with whoever you like. And you can also reach out to our office directly and we'll get it into your hands.
Give me your website one more time.
www.laidleracademy.com.
So it's L-A-I, not L-E-I. Yeah.
L-A-I. Yes.
And of course, if you're watching the video, it's down below. All the contact information is there. And it's a real pleasure to have a real experts in this field as a guest today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Ozzie. Appreciate it.
Thank you.